A very good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to this live interactive webinar uh, today, and which would be focusing on the high-tech and effective measures taken by the Mahbubnagar Police Department, and also various other best practices and also innovations to deal with the challenges during the corona pandemic. And My name is Sudhir Gautam. I'm the Senior Assistant Editor and Bureau Head with the Elets Technomedia Private Limited. And today I'm glad to bring to you a very special guest who's one of the uh, super lady cop of our country. She's a 2009 batch IPS officer. She's also the first female IPS officer from one of the beautiful hill stations of our country, Munnar, in the state of Kerala. Uh, and she's also the best lady IPS officer of 2009 batch. Uh, she's well known for her various exemplary leadership and bring about change in the society. Her role in curbing the fake news and misinformation spread through WhatsApp, an intensive initiative taken up by her, was well acclaimed across the nation. We would also be talking about that. Presently, she is the superintendent uh, of police, the chief of the police in the Mahbubnagar district of Telangana state. Welcome, Ms. Rema Rajeshwari, to this live webinar today.
Good evening, Mr. Gautam. Thank you so much for
Thank,
having me in this. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. So, before we move on the technicalities of the best practices and initiatives taken up by the police in the Mahbubnagar district, uh, uh, in the interest of audience, we would like to know how was your journey into these Indian police services, um, and how was your journey as a female officer in such a profession?
Well, that's um, so I have to put a very long journey into few words. I'll try my best. Well, you already mentioned that I hail from this beautiful hill station called Munnar. So back in those days, when I was growing up in Munnar, we didn't have anybody from the community or from my own hometown entering the civil services. We did hear about the officers who were really doing well through newspapers and TV, but there was nobody in the immediate vicinity who could probably tell me what exactly is the Indian civil services. So while I was in school, or later on when I went to college, I had absolutely no idea. It was only after I completed my master's in computer science, and when I started working as the systems analyst for the Taj Group of Hotels. I was based out of Cochin. So that's when I started preparing for the exams on a more serious note. It was more about self preparation. I had absolutely no guidance. So eventually I decided to move base to Delhi, and I quit my job as a software engineer, and I started working as a sub editor for a magazine in Delhi, so that I had more time to prepare. And this magazine was about coming up with books and weekly and monthly magazines for the civil service aspirants. So that gave me ample opportunity to access the study material and read a wide range of books. So finally I made it to the civil services in 2000, in the examination which was conducted in 2008, and then I got allotted to the 2009 batch. Um, so depending on your rank, your preference, and the number of vacancies in that year, I got allotted to the Indian Police Service. Even though my first preference was Indian Administrative Service, but today, when I look back 10 years down the lane, I feel that that was probably the best decision of my life, because this job has given me such beautiful experience, a lot of opportunities to work the way I want. And also I know it's a very cliched word when I say it, but to truly bring about some meaningful change wherever I get to work. So that it's the beauty about the Indian Police Service, because people usually when they think about the Indian police service, they have this very preconceived notion that it's all about dhanda chalana, that physical part of that aggressive part of policing, but it's not. We do a lot of administration, and we do a lot of social management. And I guess if you look at the social graph of India today, the most part of the social stress, this tension is being managed by the Indian police in across different organizations, the state police, the central paramilitary organizations, and the different specialized organizations. So I think like I said a few minutes ago, this was probably one of the best decisions of my life to continue in the Indian police service, and I have a few more years to go, and I truly hope that I'll have much more opportunities to work the way I have always hoped for. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You have also been onto editorial work. If I'm not wrong, you still uh, uh, write many articles, and you also uh, impart some classes to the Yale University.
Well, I do write. I contribute articles to some of the newspapers sometimes whenever I have time, and I blog for the Times of India, and I do contribute articles to some of the international journals. When you're posted in a district like Mahbubnagar, you don't have much of a social life. So reading and writing gives you great company. So and that's my most favorite hobby. So you know I still pursue it. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Ma'am, your journey and your career of IPS, Indian Police Service, spanning around a decade. You have done a lot of work uh, in terms of uh, busting the child trafficking. I think you were also in the Greyhound service, and you a lot of women empowerment initiatives you have taken beyond your call of police duty. We'll touch upon those aspects also, but we would first uh, talk about the present crisis of corona pandemic. A lot of challenges have been thrown across on the humankind. So you, as a police chief of the district, Mahbubnagar district in Telangana, uh, can you tell us about the significance of information technology and other advanced technology used by your department?
Okay. So, talking about, handling the COVID pandemic, we all know, and we have seen since January this year, how this pandemic has literally, shaken the global economy. It has disrupted our work, the way we go about our daily lives. And in March, we started having positive cases in the state of Telangana, and around the third week of March, we had our first positive case in Mahbubnagar district. So that's when we really got into COVID policing in the district. As you rightly mentioned here, managing COVID has been possible, and we have managed to flatten the curve much quickly in this district. And I must say that technology has played a huge role in that, especially when it comes to contact tracing, making sure that the people who are kept in home quarantine stay there, and managing the lockdown, reaching out to the community, because social media plays a huge, they play a huge role, because if you look at uh, the way the pandemic unveiled itself in our state, and particularly in my district, uh, people were not prepared for it. In fact, nobody was prepared for it. So we had to prepare them. As I mentioned in the beginning of our conversation, taking care of that social stress and handling panic management was so very important for us. Because if you remember, on March 22nd, when the Honorable Prime Minister of India announced the Janata curfew, people were given very little window to prepare, themselves. So the primary responsibility was with the police officers and also the district administration, and we all worked as a team, and we made sure that within those 24 hours we prepared them mentally, and that was a huge task. And we all know that it is not easy informing the people about the decisions taken by the government and how important for them to follow these guidelines. It's impossible without the help of the technology. So we have taken the support of technology in a big way, not just the apps that we use to keep a proper surveillance on people who are kept in home quarantine, or the drone surveillance that we use, especially when we had containment clusters in the district, because it is not easy for you to keep a particular region under complete lockdown
Yeah.
when the rest of the region is not. So you need to take the support of technology, which acts as a force multiplier for the force, because we had to divide our attention between various things: handling the lockdown, enforcing the lockdown rules, and making sure that people don't violate. And then we had to facilitate the movement and transportation of essential services. And then we had to do contact tracing. We had to help the administration, particularly the healthcare professionals, in terms of identifying these people, tracking them, bringing them to the quarantine facilities, and then following the procedures after that. And then in between, I'm sure everybody read in the newspapers how there were some incidents where the healthcare professionals were also targeted. So we had to make sure that every single healthcare professional who works in this district was given the sense of safety and security. So taking care of their safety was also very important for us. Uh, I think I just lost you there. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear.
Can you tell me when I can start?
Ma'am, please start.
Okay. Yeah. So reaching out to such a huge population was possible only with the help of technology. And the next byproduct of technology, which is social media, really came in handy. And if we were managed to um, you know pass on the information on a real-time basis to every single citizen who lives in this district, that was possible only with the help of social media. Yes, tech-enabled policing is the key now, and I mean that doesn't mean that we cannot resort to the good old traditional policing. So it was a fine balance of both. Um, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you.
I guess I have to wait for the next question from Mr. Gautam now.
Yeah, he is connected. So
Okay.
just wait for him.
Okay.
Meanwhile, ma'am, I am playing a video of Elets Technomedia.
Okay.
आहे ना. Hello.
भारत एक युवा देश है। विश्व में हमने युवाओं की आईटी एनर्जी के माध्यम से विकास किया है और भारत इसके बात के लिए गर्व कर सकता है। दुनिया में हम आंख में आंख मिला करके बात कर सकते हैं। और ये मेरा साथ मैं हमेशा कहता हूँ, आईटी प्लस आईटी इज इक्वल टू आईटी। इंफॉर्मेशन टेक्नोलॉजी प्लस इंडियन टैलेंट इज इक्वल टू इंडिया डेवलपमेंट।
Sorry, there was a sudden disconnect. There was technical problem. So, ma'am, I would request. So, you were talking about the role of significance of technology, how it was used, and there was also a very famous video that was going, and it was also in the news how the drones were used in the Mahbubnagar district. Could you please tell us about that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, when the number of cases started rising in the district, we had to declare certain areas as containment clusters as per the protocol laid out by the ICMR and also the state government. So sometimes it is not easy to convince a certain section of people who live in those containment clusters to for more rules than the others. And you also don't have the luxury, you as in like we, the police department, also don't have the luxury of a lot of manpower wherein you can like post one-to-one and they are going to take care of strict implementation of the lockdown. So sometimes it becomes very crucial for you to take the support of technology. So drone was a great help to us. A week into a declaration of containment clusters in the district, we decided that in order to keep, particularly the youth at home, it was important for us to use drones. The idea was not to, create any trouble for the citizens, but the idea was to create a certain amount of deterrence among the citizens, even if they have this, strong, slight urge to, step out of their homes. because back in those days when we had containment clusters, we had very strict rules laid out for enforcing lockdown in the district, and we couldn't afford to have even a minor violation in those containment clusters. And that was probably one of the reasons why we managed to flatten the curve much more earlier. So drones, in a way, it was really a lot of learning for us, because we learned the topography of the areas, and it was sometimes funny because the way people just run away when they see the drone camera hovering over their heads. And sometimes we used to release those videos through social media and media, and people also used to look at those videos and they used to feel that the cops are probably everywhere. Sometimes we used to deploy only one drone, but there was this feeling among the citizens that there are probably 10 to 15 drones. So that really added to the efforts of the local police, and that's what I call as the force multiplier.
Yeah. Can you tell us about the challenge you have faced during this imposition, and how could you use the social media to for the public participation? There was also like positive side where citizens were equally supporting the lockdown.
Yes. See, we received a lot of accolades and a lot of appreciation for the way we tapped into the potential of the community. We have been doing this community outreach campaigns, and if you look at the way we do policing in Mahbubnagar district, I use something called a collaborative policing. Collaborative policing is nothing but you take the citizens and you make them partners. You make them stakeholders in the way you design policing interventions, and you implement those policing interventions for the citizens you are serving. So
Yeah.
this really helped us, in almost everything: our basic policing activities, crime prevention, women's safety, and even during elections. This was a big help for us. We used and we deployed the same strategies during COVID policing also. We used a certain method called community watch. Community watch is nothing but taking the support of the local community representatives. For example, if you take the case of a typical village in the state of Telangana, every village has a village kavalkar. Locally they are known as the village revenue assistants. In some villages we have women, some villages we have men. So we reached out to every kavalkar and we made them partners with the local police. So wherever the local police officers couldn't afford to deploy police officers, these kavalkars helped us in ensuring social distancing. I'm talking about something that happened way back in the last week of March, when we were just having our initial positive cases. And at that point in time, maintaining physical distancing was a big challenge for us. One,
Yeah.
one because it was an alien concept for most of the people. Two, Bautika Duram Patinchali and all, in order to educate the people, in order to, send across this message to a larger population, we had to pick representatives from among themselves, to do it for them.
Yeah.
That really helped. So this community watch, wherein we use the local representatives to enforce lockdown rules, one. Two, we use the community representatives, to inform us if somebody came from outside, or if somebody broke the rules of, home quarantine, or if somebody opened the shop against the rules, or somebody was not staying home. So every bit of information, and this information really helped us in handling, COVID management in those days, in the initial days. And the second thing is, you wanted me to talk about the most important challenge that we were facing during this phase. I would say that, maintaining that fine balance between core policing activities and COVID policing, policing a pandemic, was a challenge in the beginning, because my force and the community at large, they were not prepared for this. I don't think many of us have ever seen this in our lifetime. I don't think the previous 2-3 generations have also seen this. So
Yes.
none of us were prepared for this. And before we started preparing for the community, we had to prepare ourselves. So you took multiple rounds of wireless at conferences, hundreds of telephone conversations with my team, and hundreds of video conferences where I personally took training sessions for them just to explain the whole idea about how to do you know how to do pandemic policing. So that way we had to prepare the force, and then all of a sudden the core policing activities stopped. Not completely, but yes, the usual, receiving a petitioner at a police station, and you get a call, you get a dial 100 call, you immediately rush to the spot, and there is a major law and order problem, there is VIP movement, there is traffic management. None of it happened. Suddenly everything stopped, and now all you're doing is you're doing contact tracing, you are tracking people, bringing them to the quarantine, you are enforcing lockdown, you're making sure that everybody stays home, you're making sure that physical distancing is maintained. This is a completely different kind of policing that I had to do and my team had to do. So we we're literally learning on the go. The solutions that we had with us, we didn't have them ready on March 22nd. We had these solutions on the go as we moved. And today when we look back, I think most of the lessons that we learned, they are such a rich treasure. And I think as a leader, particularly as a police leader, I have always advocated this concept of North Star approach, what I call, wherein you should look ahead. I'm sure most of us are looking at the data every day. We are hoping that someday this is going to be over, COVID is going to probably it's just going to come down and the cases will go down, and finally we get back to normalcy. But that normalcy, nobody can predict how long that's going to take. So right now preparing the force for that uncertainty is also a big challenge. So that also we are doing while we are doing all of this.
Yeah, as you said, it was the first time, and it was learning on the go while implementing the law and all. In the recent past, there were a lot of policemen were also not prepared, and in the recent past, there were a lot of tests were done for the police force, and we could find, and a lot of some of the policemen, a lot of cases turned out to be positive. The police force. How do you see that, and how do you see the other policemen protecting themselves and dealing with the cases?
Well, if you look at Telangana State Police, Telangana State Police, the way they take care of the welfare of the police officers, it's unmatchable. Since the beginning, the day we had the first COVID positive in the state, our Director General of Police, Mr. Mahinder Reddy, he briefed all the unit officers, all the SPs and the CPs and the DCPs, how important for us to prepare the force. And preparing the force means you have to teach them about the safety protocols. So this practice of preparing your force, and educating them and making sure that they follow the safety protocols themselves before they go ahead and prepare the community for that, this has been there since the beginning. So most of the force, I would say 99.9% of the force, they strictly follow these safety protocols. It's only when there is a very minuscule proportion which probably just sometimes because of laziness, or sometimes because of just they don't want to sometimes you just feel like taking off your mask, you don't feel like wearing the face shield. And there are aberrations. I wouldn't say they are like a general rule, they are exceptions. And this section is probably at the risk of contacting the virus. But a vast majority of the police officers, they strictly follow the safety protocols, and they're being prepared. They've been prepared accordingly, and this is not a one-time experiment or one-time exercise. We do this almost every day. Every day during the DGP's teleconference, all the officers have been properly briefed, and we in turn brief our team. So this way, they're also given to understand the risk, we face as frontline workers while fighting COVID. And also we in turn tell them that, it's their responsibility to take care of their families, because we have seen numerous, cases. I'm not talking about the police officers, but different, like healthcare professionals and people who work in public spaces, how they go back, and sometimes the family also get infected in the process.
Yeah.
So we have prepared standard operating procedure for each vertical. Like in police department, we have functional verticals like the reception vertical, the patrol vehicle vertical, the crime vertical. Every vertical is given a particular SOP, and they've been strictly asked to follow that SOP when it comes to personal safety, and they are doing it. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. And you have been the chief of police in Mahbubnagar for close to 3.5 years now. Yeah. So, can you please tell us about the demography and the total population out there, and how has been the transformation and in policing in Mahbubnagar?
Well, when I took over as the district police chief of Mahbubnagar in 2016, this was probably one of the largest districts in the state, a huge one. And in 2016, when the state government decided to go for the district reorganization, this district was probably divided into the maximum number of districts. We had to carve out Joglamba Gadwal, Vanaparthi, Nagar Karnool, and most recently Narayanapet district. And part of the districts were also given to Cyberabad Police Commissionerate, Rachakonda Police Commissionerate, Vikarabad district. So literally this was divided into almost 8 units. And now I am the district police chief of the Mahbubnagar part. So yes, I've seen a lot of change in the way things have, policing has changed from 2016 to 2020. But the very nature of this district is that why I'm mentioning here is because this has something to do with the COVID management now. This district has traditionally been known as a Valasa Jilla, a migrant district.
Okay.
Over the past few years, people living in this district have out-migrated in large numbers in search of job and livelihood. And this has been happening since almost 40 years, 40, 50 years. People have predominantly gone to the state of Maharashtra, and most of the laborers who work in construction sites, major construction sites in the metropolitan cities like Bombay and Chennai and Pune, Bangalore, most of them are from Mahbubnagar. So in the economy books, you will find a mention of this phrase called Palamuru laborers, because Palamuru is the traditional name of this district, and Palamuru laborers has become an economic phenomenon, so much so that that many number of people have out migrated from this district. And now, with the reverse migration happening in different parts of the country, we have received at least 25,000 people who came back to this district in the last 35 days. Sometimes we have received 3 generations of people. Somebody must have migrated 30 years ago. His child and his child, they all lived in Bombay for so many years, and now they're all back in their native villages. So handling this population, this section which comes back to their native district, is also a major challenge for us, because we have to make sure that everybody who comes from these states, more particularly the state of Maharashtra, where certain areas are declared as red zones, and they have really too many cases, and we have to make sure that every single person who enters the district is medically screened, and he or she is properly quarantined. So without the support of the community support, it's difficult for us to do that. We offer 100% support to the healthcare professionals in doing so, and we have established these multi-agency teams in all the villages which take care of this job. So now, since I've been here for such a long time, I've seen the erstwhile district. Now I've seen the reorganized district, and I've always read about the history of this place. Now I see all those people coming back, and whenever I have time, I go to the villages, I interact with them, talk to them, and understand, the tales. Sometimes, they have so many stories to tell. How many years they have gone back, what kind of jobs they did in such a huge, city like Bombay, and now they are back, and there is a certain amount of uncertainty. They are not sure whether they'll be able to go back, say, next month or in 6 months or in a year. They don't know, but they are happy that they are home. So sometimes, if a huge group comes from a red zone, We have to make sure that we keep them in a school, or probably a function hall, so that the small cluster of a village doesn't get affected. uh, so it takes a lot of convincing. So you go, you sit with them, you talk to them, and you explain the health and the potential risk involved, and they merrily agree. And in the process you get to interact with them and learn a lot about their lives. So that way it's been an absolute pleasure and such a delightful experience being in this district. And maybe someday I'll have enough to write a book about this district. But yes, it's been a beautiful experience being here.
Yeah, looking forward. In fact, this Palamuru and all these are the very much part of the Telangana, and there is a certain dialect. You are a multilingual person. You can speak 6 languages. We just spoke about that. You can speak Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, of course, Punjabi, English, and Hindi also. How has been you have been a person to reach out to the people. A lot of initiatives have been taken to by you. And how do you see the language, the dialect, the use of language out there locally?
Well, I speak Telugu pretty good. I mean, I can speak like a Telugu person, so language has never been a barrier for me. And yes, you're right about the dialect part, especially if you go to a Tanda, like there they speak the Lambada dialect, and I can only understand few words. But yes, the way they speak Telugu is also very different. But if you spend a considerable amount of time with them, then eventually you begin to understand what they try to communicate. That's one. And about that particular dialect of Telugu which is being spoken in Palamuru is also, yes, I guess since I've been here for such a long time, I don't find any difficulty in understanding when they speak. Well, I cannot speak in the same manner they speak, but yes, I don't have any trouble at all when they speak. And also because Telangana State Police has been promoting this people-friendly policing in such a big way. Our CM, or our DGP has been a huge advocate of promoting citizen-centric policing. So we encourage a lot of people to come and meet the superintendent of police directly. This was never in the past. In the past, if you see that meeting a police chief of a district, it's a big thing. But it's not the case anymore. People can just walk into my office any time of the day. Sometimes they come in the night also. They will call. You say I'm home. They say, Madam, me office lo namu vacheshindi. Then immediately go to office and you meet them. So this has broken that barrier which existed in the past. And the more you interact with the people, you end up picking up whatever dialect they speak.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And one of your initiatives which needed, you have a person who go out to the public, which I've seen in several of your initiatives. One of your popular initiatives was bursting the fake news and misinformation, which also led to mob lynching or something like that, physical violence. Can you tell us about the intensive campaign which you and your team has taken up, and how could you prepare your team, and how could you reach out, and what was the success of that campaign?
Well, this happened in the summer of 2018, and I was working as SP of Joglamba Gadwal district. I was posted in the month of March 2018, and wherever I have worked, in all the districts that I have worked, the moment I take charge, there's one thing that I do first before I get back to my core policing work. That is implementation of village police officer system. If you look at a police station in Telangana, on an average, every mandal police station will have a strength of 25 to 30 police officers. So my idea of implementing the system was to pick up these, police officers, particularly constable officers, who work as beat police officers, who are, the regular visitors to these villages and, crime spots and all. So we allot villages to them. We allot villages. Sometimes if it's a big village, a constable officer gets one village. If it's a small village, then one constable officer gets 2 to 3 villages. And we encourage them to visit these villages at least 2 or 3 times in a week whenever they have time. Whenever they have some free time left apart from their core policing work, And the idea was to encourage them to go spend as much as time with the community and understand their problems. If there are like some small issues, petty disputes, just sit there and try to resolve them there, and build that beautiful connect with the community. The idea was to address the gap that existed between cops and community. It's a very simple system, a very beautiful system. So in Joglamba Gadwal also, when I went in March, the first thing I did was to implement this one. So after conducting a training session for all these constable officers who were designated as village police officers, I sent them to the villages, and after 1 week they were all called back to my office because I was taking a review meeting. I wanted to get the feedback about how they felt, what they observed, and all. So in one of the review meetings, a village police officer raised this issue. He told me that he had something very important to share with me. He told me that he was allotted 2 villages, and in that week he visited these 2 villages at least 4 times. And since he was taking care of the court duty, he could go only in the evening. And he observed that when he went in the evening, he couldn't meet a lot of people. Whenever he went to these villages, he saw that there was this unusual quietness. There wasn't any there weren't any people outside. And now we are talking about March. March is very hot in Telangana, and Gadwal is like even more hotter. So if you go to these villages in the evening, you will see a lot of people outside, and most of these people sleep outside their houses. Sometimes you see them at the chaurastalu, kuchuntaru. You find people everywhere, kids playing outside, women sitting outside chit chatting and all. He told me that he thought this was very unusual because he found nobody outside.
Okay.
Everybody locked themselves up in their houses. He saw no kids playing outside. He saw no women outside. He saw absolutely no human movement in these villages. So he thought, maybe something is wrong, or maybe he came at a wrong time. So he went back the next day and he saw the same thing. Since he didn't have enough time, he came back, and the next day we had this review meeting, and he told me that, ma'am, in my 23 years of experience, I've never seen something like this. I asked the other village police officers, and I asked them if they also observed something like this, and most of them said yes. But they didn't pay close attention because they thought probably they went late, and probably it was too hot, so people just didn't want to step out. They didn't really apply their mind. Then I said, this indeed is unusual, and we need to, examine this. We need to verify this. So I told them, you all go back to your villages. I'll give you 48 hours time, 2 days of time. Whenever you have time, just go back to these villages, talk to the people. Go knock on the doors, ask them to come out and talk to them and understand what is the problem. Because there was this, self-imposed curfew kind of situation there. So after 48 hours, they all came back and they told me that the reason why they had this, this kind of state of mass hysteria and this quietness in the villages was because most of them were receiving these really violent videos in their WhatsApp groups. Some videos were about organ harvesting gangs. They were really violent videos, where people are being cut into pieces. Young children are dismembered, and they're, sometimes the legs and the head and, the torso, it's kept apart. And, these really malicious pictures were being shared in the local WhatsApp groups. And they literally thought, there's this local criminal gang called Parthi gang, which is very notorious, and it's active in like 5 South Indian states. And people living in these villages in the past, they have seen how violent these Parthi gang can get. And some of these WhatsApp videos spoke about Parthi gangs, saying that మీ ఊరికి Parthi gang వచ్చారు, పిల్లల్ని ఎత్తుకుపోతారు, మీరు కనుక ఎక్కడైనా if they come across you, they are going to probably kill you, or cut you into pieces. And if you resist, they are just going to kill you. So these kind of malicious content was being spread. So these constable officers, they collected all these videos and images and they brought it to my office. So we formed a little group, a social media monitoring group, using some tech savvy constables that I had in my office, and we examined each videos, and we could put them into 2 categories. One was this huge bunch of videos about organ harvesting gaps, and the second one was about the child lifting gap. So the people thought that there is really a gang which is going to take away their children, kidnap their children. There is really a gang which is going to just kill them, or probably harvest their organs, steal their organs. and there was nobody who could tell them that no, it's not true. Because for the police officers also, this was a brand new law enforcement challenge, because we have never had this in the past. And around this time we started hearing incidents happening in different parts of the district, wherein people are forming themselves into unlawful assembly. They are wielding sticks, village rakshana samiti, they just name, give different names, and they are not letting anybody enter the village. They self-imposed themselves, and if anybody enters the village, they were trashed. Sometimes there were incidents where people suffered serious injuries. So we had to do something about it. That is how we came up with this intensive educated campaign, wherein the police officers reached out to each village and educated every single person. And also we identified people who were doing this deliberately, and we started taking legal action against them. And the process just continued. And I'm sure you read in the papers around the month of April, May, June, July, we started, reading about mob violence happening, mob lynching happening in different parts of the country. But because of this campaign that we ran in the district of Gadwal, we did not have any deaths. Yes, we had a lot of incidents wherein people were crashed and they were injured, but we had no deaths. And that campaign just continued. And that campaign continued during elections, because during elections also there was a lot of misinformation being spread. So we had to continue the campaign. And then sometimes communally sensitive content is also being circulated in WhatsApp groups. So we continued the campaign just to educate people about this malicious content. And now during COVID management also, COVID policing also, the same campaign is being continued, because I'm sure you have seen in different social media platforms, there is a huge chunk of this misinformation and fake news about COVID, and magical cures, and how home remedies can cure you of COVID. So it was our responsibility to give verified and correct information to the people. So that was the whole idea behind the campaign.
Okay, that's wonderful. Now, policing has changed post-pandemic. During now, we are still in this crisis. And how do you see a change, a transformation? This like it is kind of policing before Corona pandemic and during and post pandemic. How do you see there is a significant shift?
Well, I think things will never be the same. Life is never going to be the same ever again. And policing is no exception. So policing is also going to undergo a tremendous transformation. Um, uh, I must admit that yes, we have witnessed certain incidents of police excess, overaction, where police officers went a bit too far while dealing with the citizens, and that definitely brought a bad image to the police officers and the force at large. But that is not the case with the majority of the police officers. If you observe how police officers have worked non-stop 24 by 7 without sleep, without being able to be with their families in these last in these 2 months, it is really commendable. It's really amazing. I have seen my own force. Sometimes some of the inspectors don't even go home, they stay in the police station. And because there is so much work to do, you have to enforce lockdown, you have to make sure that the COVID management is done properly. So because of lack of time, they don't even go home. So that amount of sacrifice, it's really unmatchable. And the human policing that we observed, especially while handling migrant workers, I've seen a lot of my sub-inspectors and circle inspectors, without having me to tell them, they have pulled in resources. Sometimes they have spent their own salary, and they have arranged food and shelter for them, and they have visited all the labor camps, and they've been continuously supplying them with essential items. That's a beautiful thing to do. We never had to ask them to do, but they did. So people get to see the human side of the police officers during this pandemic.
Yeah.
So the perception crisis that the police suffered all these years, it's going to change. Yes, like I said, there are certain aberrations, and also there is this is a greater emergency, and handling the behavior of every police officer is not going to be easy. and greater consistency in the application of emergency rules is also a bigger challenge for us. I mean, you cannot expect every police officer to act and behave in a certain manner, but we try. We keep trying and we keep preparing them for that. So yes, and I'm very hopeful that the perception is going to change in favor of the police officers, and the citizens have seen that, you know, if we have to handle this pandemic, it is not possible without the help of the police officers, because we have been at the forefront in terms of everything, you know, starting from essential services
Yeah.
facilitation to even, you know, arranging, you know, medical emergency ambulances, everything. And you know, in my district, something I forgot to mention while I was talking about COVID management in the beginning, you know, see, we have women who are locked up in their houses with abusive husbands. I'm talking about domestic violence, right? So especially in the initial days of lockdown, and you know, where the women could not come to the police stations freely, they were locked up in their houses and they were facing domestic violence, and there was no way they could reach out to the police officers. So
Yeah.
we came up with this mobile safety teams, and we started, you know, popularizing this number where they could just inform us, or probably a neighbor or a relative could inform us, and these mobile, you know, police officers, the team of police officers, go to, you know, they used to go to the house and they used to sit there and counsel the husband, and if it was required, they used to bring the husband to the police station and book cases. So, you know, so these are sometimes, you know, you have to understand that a crisis is a great opportunity in, you know, it's a great opportunity to for you to come up with social innovations, and, you know, and come up with ways to help citizens in the best way that you can. So yes, I'm very hopeful that it's going to change in a big way for the police officers, and it's also a great opportunity for us to do a little bit of, you know, course correction, and
Yeah.
and make this, you know, human policing, you know, as part of our work.
Yeah. As a police chief, in these challenging times, how could you keep up the spirit of your team members up and intact?
Well, I have a beautiful bond with my team, and I have, all through my career, you know, if I could just, you know, proudly flaunt one thing, which is, you know, my relationship with my team. Most of the time, not most of the time, we are like a family, because you know that, you know, we barely spend any time at home,
Yes.
while the whole world was working from home, staying with their families. We were always out. So for
Yeah.
us, for me, the team is your family. And for a police officer also, he spends most of his time in the police station. So your police station staff becomes your family.
Yeah.
So and during a time like this, that bond gets stronger. So sometimes, you know, I was really, you know, surprised, and I was really overwhelmed when I saw that, you know, my team didn't need any particular instructions from me. Sometimes they just went beyond the call of duty, and they just did things, and they would surprise me, like especially the way they handle the migrant workers, the way they handle this domestic violence issues, and, you know, how they facilitated essential services, you know, a small, you know, little act of kindness, and, you know, that initiatives and the proactiveness, that was really good. So I wouldn't say that, you know, I did a lot of things to, you know, to pep up their spirit. I really didn't have to do a lot. They were already motivated enough, and they did it amazingly well.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Uh, there shows the true leadership spirit out there. Can you please tell us about uh, the initiatives and the work which you have done in terms of women empowerment, and also you have contributed significantly in bursting the child trafficking and eventually giving them a life, a second life, and also one of the subject which is very close to your heart, that is about the children and their education. Can you please tell us about those work which you have done?
Well, with regard to the gender empowerment thing, we have launched something called a gender peace program in Mahbubnagar district. in the erstwhile Mahbubnagar district in 2016.
Okay.
We did it on an experimentation basis. This was a pilot project. We had the help of an NGO from Delhi, and we handpicked certain police officers who were really sensitive, very empathetic, and had that urge to work towards a gender sensitive force. So these 30 police officers were specially trained over a period of 6 months, and they in turn became master trainers, and they went back to the police stations and they trained all the 1,500 odd police officers in Mahbubnagar district. And everybody was trained using very simple methods. For example, if you look at the usual gender sensitivity training curriculum, they speak about how you have to be empathetic, like sometimes really through concepts and case studies and all. And our police officers don't relate to those concepts. So through the gender peace program, what we did was we wanted them to impart gender sensitivity through day-to-day activities. For example, there was this constable officer. His name was Balaya, and every day he would go back to his home, and he actually started helping his wife in cooking. And there was this other police officer, and whenever he had time, especially during weekends, he started, bathing his children and taking care of his children, which he never did, because he always thought, as per the society's, gender role, mandate, it is a responsibility of a wife, and he doesn't have any responsibility in that. So basically, we started preparing them at home so that when they go to the police stations, they feel that, this is not something alien. This is not a novel concept, something you need to sit and learn. This can be part of your own life. You need to be sensitive as a person, not just as a police officer.
Yeah.
So this was done on a pilot, basis, and this became a huge hit in my district. And the amount of transformation we saw in the police stations, in the way my police officers were dealing with victims of gender-based violence, that was really good, and there was a lot of progress made there. And we are still continuing with that, training. And every time there is a new bunch of, police officers who join the department, we make sure that they are given this training, and the training happens at home, not just at the police station. Yeah. And about the children, yes, I run a campaign called Saving Child Brides campaign, because Mahbubnagar, as you know, have been a backward district for a very long time. So obviously it will have its societal impact. So here, there is this cultural practice where girls are married off very young. Sometimes, they are married off when they are barely 11 or 12 or 13. Even today we have cases, even this morning we stopped a child marriage, even during COVID. So so I have this campaign, we call it Saving Child Brides, with the help of the ICDS officials and the village police officers, and with the larger support of the community, because they are the ones who give us information. The moment we receive information, we make sure that we go and stop the child marriage, and these kids are properly rehabilitated. They are brought back to the state home, and we make sure that their education is continued. And trafficking, not much. The cases where young girls, adolescent girls, are given into false promise of marriage, and they sometimes elope with auto drivers or much married men, which is a big phenomenon in this district. So we have this Balyani Ki Raksha program, wherein we reach out to all the schools and colleges, and we continuously teach them. It is not a one-time thing. We do it like it's part of regular policing activity. If there is a sub-inspector, if addressing child safety issue is as important as crime control. So that is how it is. Yeah.
Okay, great, ma'am. So if you can see, you must be there is a Q&A section out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you would like to take question, there is a question from Mumbai, Maharashtra by Mr. Harshal Desai. He has a question. In Maharashtra, a large number of police officers have been infected by COVID-19. How are you ensuring safety of your teammates who are working under your authority in the district?
Well, I guess I already spoke about it in detail a little while ago, but yes, since you asked, I'd like to repeat it very briefly. So we have developed safety protocols for the police officers, and we have a well-devised standard operating procedure on personal safety for each vertical: a crime vertical, a patrolling vertical, traffic vertical, reception vertical. Every single aspect of policing is taken into consideration, and we have, come up with this SOPs, and we have trained them, and we train them every week. And there is a mobile training team which goes to the police stations every fourth day, and they make sure that these police officers follow these safety protocols. If we ever come across a police officer who fails to wear a mask, or who doesn't use his face shield when he goes into frontline work, we really take it very seriously. He's called and he's counseled, and at the same time we also take care of their families. So when we distribute personal safety kits to the police officers, we make sure that a similar safety kit is given to the families also, and we make sure that these families are also made partners in the whole safety thing. Because sometimes a police officer may take it a bit casually, but once the family is involved, he starts taking things seriously, especially the wife. So that's how we ensure it. Yes, I admit that it's a big challenge, but yes, we are constantly working on it.
Great. We shall move on to the next question by Mr. Prakash Menon. He has a question. Did you see a big drop in criminal activities due to the lockdown? And do you prefer having a diluted version of it always, especially at night?
Well, I mean, there's no harm in dreaming about it, but yes, we all know that that's not a viable option. Eventually, we all have to get back to normalcy. The economy has to get into the revival mode, and as police officers, we have to support the government in getting back to the normalcy. But yes, criminals have been on a forced holiday. Some of them are slowly trying to get back, but we make sure that they don't. But yes, criminality is part of the larger societal design. You cannot wish away criminal activities as a police officer. You can never think of a completely crime-free society, because wherever there is a society, criminal activities are bound to happen. As a police officer, my responsibility is to make sure that it doesn't go beyond the permissible level, or rather, it shouldn't probably become the general rule. Criminals should not overpower the society's norms. So we try. It's always a tussle between the criminals and the police officers, and we are at the game. Yeah.
Connecting question to this, we have also seen a lot of this crisis has uh, uh, led to a lot of unemployment, and I have also come across some news where people are just uh, attacking some vehicles on the highway and all. There were a lot of migrants. How do you see the unemployment and the criminal cases, unemployment, criminal cases, and the livelihood?
Well, see, the connection between unemployment and crime has always been a subject of debate. It's very much debatable. You cannot conclusively say that because somebody's unemployment, he decided to commit a crime. It does happen, but we cannot say that it happens only because he was jobless. And especially during COVID, yes, many were left jobless, but that is no excuse for somebody to resort to criminality or a criminal activity. And the second part of the question, yes, we did see a lot of decrease in registered crimes. That's because probably people could not come to the police stations, and that is also because there were less number of vehicles on the road, so there were less number of road fatalities, road accidents being the largest chunk of crime which is being reported, and also less number of people outside. That means less friction, less fights, and there is no petty crime, and there is no major property offenses, because everybody's home, so there is no hope for the house burglars to break into a house and commit theft. So that way crime did come down, but that is not to suggest that once we resume our regular activities, it will completely go down. It might come back, and yes, we continue to curb them, and we continue to employ interventions to make sure that they don't take advantage of the situation. Yeah.
Great. There's one question from Mr. SP Singh. While young officers joining police forces are high on ethics and moral values, especially corruption of making money, what is your opinion on how it is being taken care of by Indian police organizations today, and what is your take on future fabric of corruption in police organization?
Again, sir, I can only talk about myself, and I've always maintained, and I always made it a point that I will never become one. And 10 years into the service, and I can proudly say that I've never resorted to any unscrupulous activities, and I made sure that anybody who works under me is constantly motivated, constantly counseled not to resort to unscrupulous activities. Um, uh, and this is also my personal opinion. Um, everybody is welcome to disagree, but I feel that just to paint that picture of picture that every police officer is corrupt is not correct, because if everybody is corrupt, the total system will collapse. It is impossible to run such a system in such a huge country, with corrupt police officers. So yes, there are black sheeps in every organizations, and police being in the public eye at all times,
Yeah.
and we being the favorites of media, and public usually don't prefer the good deeds done by the police officers. But yes, there is always this curiosity to know about what mistakes were done by the police officers. You will see that wrong stories occupy a lot of space in the media ecosystem. So that is how people are given to understand that and this notion is created that every police officer is corrupt, which is not true. There are police officers I've seen personally. I also try to be one. There are police officers who have done 40 years of service by not taking even a single penny, and they are so proud about it. They are so proud about it, and their families are proud about it. So yes, we do have good police officers, and I would like to believe that everybody will be like that.
Yeah, and of course, these Corona times have also shown the human side, as you have mentioned earlier. A lot of respect has grown, and the way they have contributed, a lot of sacrifice, not reaching out to their, not going to the family members, staying away, doing, taking call of their duty. And of course, it has shown the human side of the policeman. There's one last question by Mr. Nilesh Mayekar. Do you get time to speak with your batchmates across country on various issues? How are they handling the issues? This is, of course, one interesting question. How IS officers interact with their batchmates or their seniors. How do you take, there is a exchange of ideas? How has been your experience?
Well, thanks to WhatsApp, there are hundreds of WhatsApp groups. You have a batch WhatsApp group, and then you have a state civil service WhatsApp groups, and sometimes you have a state, like I'm from Kerala, so there is a Kerala civil servants WhatsApp groups where you have officers from all the services, IAS, IPS, IFS, the revenue service, all different kinds of services. So interacting with my batchmates has been made very easy by these WhatsApp groups and various social media platforms. We do interact on a regular basis. For example, just this morning, I was trying to help a migrant worker from Assam to go back to his native. He was unfortunately a victim of a racial attack, and he was thrown out of the train, and he was given temporary shelter in one of the states. I don't want to mention the state. And we were, a couple of us, some of us, we were trying to put him on a train, and we wanted to send him home. And you cannot do this alone. You need the help of at least 3 different officers from different states to to assist you in making it happen. So we put a message in the group, and sometimes we get response in like few minutes. So that's how we help each other. And about the best practices, Again, thanks to these WhatsApp groups. Anywhere in the country, if any of my batchmate or a junior or a senior does something good, he comes up with the best practice. We see the updates in all these groups, and sometimes we try to emulate them. And if we feel that we did something good, we try to share it. One, because everybody likes to hear a word of compliment once a while, so everybody is like, good job, congratulations. And then we also share it, and sometimes we call them, we try to understand. So there's a lot of sharing of knowledge. There's a lot of sharing of the goodness, which is happening in different parts of the country. And also, like for example, somebody just made a mention about what's happening in Maharashtra. Yes, we also get timely updates about what's happening in Maharashtra, so that we are better prepared. Or we know what's happening in, say, Delhi, and we get to know from our batchmates, so we are better prepared. So sometimes this kind of real-time sharing of information and work helps a lot in improving bureaucracy, in a big way.
Great. So there is one touching question that's coming across. That is about the migrant workers and this thing. And we have recently come across a video where the mother at a railway station, she's dead, and her child, oblivious of her death, he was playing around. How do you see the overall system? Can you tell about your perception? What are we lacking behind? And now we are close to the May 31st, which is the end of the fourth lockdown. And do you see a lockdown 5.0?
Well, I cannot comment on the policy decisions which are about to happen. I'm sorry, I cannot do that. But yes, I can personally vouch for the actions and decisions and executions of the officers who are part of the administration. Some of them are working day in and day out. If we have to talk about the issue of sending migrants home, in my state, Telangana was one of the first states to announce special trains for these
Yes.
migrant workers to go back to their native states. And I've seen how even a senior officer, of the rank of additional director general, he was, barely sleeping for 3 hours, because we were sending thousands home. Sometimes, the train is ready and we get information, and even from far away districts like this, we try to gather them, we register them, we put them in a vehicle, we give them food and medicines, and we take them to the city, put them in a train, and we make sure that they reach home safely. And this was such a huge exercise, and this went on for about 2 weeks, and this is still being continued in my state. And it's not an easy job, and this we do apart from our regular work.
Yeah.
And reaching out to these migrant workers who are scattered everywhere, it's not an easy thing. And
Yeah.
sometimes these migrant workers don't have proper communication, so
Yeah.
you have to literally reach out, go to the labor camps, go to these construction sites. And in my district, most of these migrant workers don't work in organized sector. Most of them are ice cream sellers. The 1,200 UP migrant workers that I have in this district, most of them work in golgappa shops, and ice cream vendors. Sometimes they work in small tiffin shops and restaurants, and they don't live in one place, they live in like hundreds of places. So the SHO has to reach out and make sure that they're identified, their details are collected, and their family is gathered, and then we take them to city and put them on a train. And we've been doing this relentlessly. Yes, there are certain unfortunate incidents, but that is not to suggest that the overall policy of the administration is wrong. That's not correct.
Yeah. Thank you very much for joining us. And would you like to give out a message for the viewers and the readers of the Ego magazine and also Elets TV, and those who are watching us live now? As in, yeah.
Well, this was an absolute pleasure talking about the work that I do, or the work that my team does, and the state does. And this is also very assuring, because there are so many people who are willing to listen to what we do, and that gives us a lot of confidence, and that's really motivating, and that gives us a lot of energy to just move on. And about the message, yes, we have a greater emergency and we will certainly come out of it. And the people will take us out of this pandemic. The social will, which is being exhibited by the citizens of this great country, is really amazing. And with this will and resilience, we will definitely fight this and we will come out victorious. And
So,
please stay safe and stay home whenever you can, and make sure that your families are also kept safe.
yeah, thanks for that message, and also thanks for joining us despite being on the emergency duty. Uh, we have been live. A lot of best practices have been taken up in Mahbubnagar. We could hear directly from the officer. In various other aspects, be it bursting the fake news, lot of peace, gender initiatives, and all. So I would request all the viewers who have watched us to share this live video, which would be available on our Ego Magazine Facebook page, to share it as much as possible so that it reaches out to the maximum people. We at Elets have embarked on this rigorous campaign to bring on the policymakers, experts from India and across the country, and also from the various parts of the globe. So with this, I and my team thank Ms. Rema Rajeshwari for joining us, for taking out time despite being so busy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.